therefore we shall start by looking at what is CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It describes how HTML elements are to be displayed on the screen, paper, or in other media. CSS saves a lot of work. It can control the layout of multiple web pages or at once. External style sheets are stored in CSS files. Then we shall look at the CSS syntax and selectors, and therefore to start with we can look at the syntax, and therefore the syntax of CSS we usually have the first part, selector, and then the declaration. For example, here we are saying that heading 1 will have color blue, and font size, it will have font size 12. At the end of every declaration we write a semicolon. Therefore this selector points to the HTML element. The declaration block contains one or more declarations separated by semicolons. Therefore we shall be doing some of the practical bit later. There are 3 ways to insert CSS, that is into a HTML document. There are 3 ways. You can use external style sheet. You can also use internal style sheet or inline. Therefore, when you talk about external style sheet, is when you are getting it from a different file. Like for example, you include the link rel style sheet, that is the link directing to where you are actually getting your file. Therefore we can go to the practical bit, and therefore we shall first of all create a folder. Therefore you create a folder, like I have created a folder called CSS Teaching Today. Then I have created a text file just by right clicking, then new text. Therefore I'll open this by using Notepad++. Then once I open that using Notepad++, I will then first of all start by creating an external style sheet, and therefore our page, which is HTML, we can start with our HTML page. Then we can be in a position to link to a style sheet. Therefore we go to this point and start our file. This is doc type is HTML. Then from there we can have our head, then we can have our head closed. Then we can proceed and have now our link relationship, that stands for relationship rel style sheet, then type equals to text //CSS. Then we are directing to where our the next is where we shall have saved our file. Like now we can call it don.css. that is where my file is, or my file name. So this one will be h reference equals to don.css. Now what we are doing here, we shall go to this point, we create new. Therefore we shall create don.css. We can save this file. Go to file, then save as. We'll direct it to where our file is here. Therefore this one is don don.css. Therefore, after doing that, after doing don.css, we can save this our main page as in the same folder. Here we can call it index dot you can just use HTML index.html, and therefore this is, you can now see this has changed color to show that these ones are really understandable. Therefore, don.css is actually the that is the page that our CSS will be written, and therefore when we are still in this point, we assign the CSS part, that is the external link, we put it in the header section, and therefore it should be inside the header section. This one is actually redirecting that this page, whatever we do in this page, will be formatted from CSS saved in a file called don.css. And therefore, for example, if I go ahead and then we go to body that way, then we can carry ahead and cross our body here. Okay. Then I just type whatever I need here. Like for example, I can just type heading 1, then I type that Don, which is a computer science teacher. That way. Then I cross my heading 1 that way. You see the importance of using Notepad++. It is showing you when you have opened and when you have closed. Then we can got something like a paragraph and say that CSS is nice. It saves time for me. Then from there, I can cross that paragraph. Therefore, we have already crossed our body. And since we have now opened our HTML up there, we can cross our HTML. Then we include the opening here. HTML. Therefore, you can see HTML. It is showing you that whether you have crossed head. It is showing you whether you have crossed. You see, that is one importance of using Notepad++. Therefore, now after doing this, we need to go back and look at the style sheet. We go to Don. Therefore, I go to Don. Then I type the style sheet body. Now, what you need to know is that the CSS syntax starts with an attribute, then you open the curly bracket, and therefore your properties goes inside the curly bracket. Therefore, for example, I needed to have background. Therefore, you can see also another advantage of this. You just choose. Therefore, I need the background color. You usually put a full colon, then the property of that attribute. Like for example, I want it to be light blue. I need it to be light blue, like that. That is light blue. Then on the other hand, the other attribute is heading 1. Remember, you have put heading 1. Therefore, you open and close the curly bracket. Then you put our properties here. Like now, color. We want color. We have said you put a full colon. We want the color to be navy. And then margin. We need the margin. You choose margin left. Margin left should be 20 pixels. px that way. Therefore, this is now don.css, and therefore this formatting here we have done here will be applied to index.html. And therefore, I will go to my browser, then type localhost CSS teaching today, that is the folder. Then index, I want to access index.html. Then I press enter. Therefore, you can see what happens. Don Gicha is a computer science teacher. CSS is nice. Now see what has happened. The navy blue and the blue color. Therefore, what is actually happening, we have not assigned any color here, but whatever we are doing, that is the background color here. Right now, if I put it to be orange, you see orange. Then I save, then I go and refresh. You see now CSS, which is in this file, is being connected to my HTML file via this external. This is now the external, that is the external CSS. That is the external CSS. Therefore, basically, what you need to know is that CSS can be connected using the using the external style sheet. Therefore, you can carry on and look the other way of connecting CSS. We have looked at external style sheet. Therefore, external style sheet is connected using link rel, and it is important for you to note that a CSS file is saved with a .css extension. Therefore, we have done that. Then let's go to internal style sheet. It is another way of inserting or embedding a CSS. An internal style sheet may be used if one single page has a unique style. Internal styles are defined within the style element inside the head section of the that is inside the head section of the HTML page. And therefore, let's go and do an example of internal style sheet. Therefore, we go back to this file of ours. Then this time around we close don.css. We are not using that, and therefore we can just go inside this file of ours and remove this one. We type a new one from there. Therefore, we are being in index.html. We want to practice on internal CSS, and therefore, what you do, you just type head. We have said it is inserted inside the head section, and therefore you type head. Then you close our head tag. Then our CSS, that is internal style sheet, goes inside here. And therefore, it is enclosed inside the word style. Therefore, we shall have style to close and style to open. Style, and therefore our style will go inside this style. That is, for example, we need to have the way we had written. Inside here we have to write our body, then our properties of the attribute here. Our body, we need our body, that is background color. I said use full color. Now background color is rename that way. Then for the heading 1, you go now and assign another attribute. For heading 1, then its properties. For the heading 1, our property is color. Color is maroon that way. Then we need to have margin left, margin left, should be something like 40 pixels. Then our heading 1, This one should actually be at that point. Therefore, that is the attribute we want. Now we shall have the next section showing us how that one will be implemented. Therefore, our heading one is that. Then we have to show how it is implemented. Therefore, the other section now goes outside this. For example, we cannot go to our body. We see how that one is affected. Body. Then inside our body, now we can type our section. We have heading 1 so that you can see how it's affected. Then you can go and say Don is a computer teacher. Then we cross the CSS. Then you can go to the other attribute that was P. We have also defined P, and therefore P, and say CSS is easy to run. Then I can now cross my P that way. Then now what we are actually doing, if you are keen, we have defined the body. The body is actually the whole page. Then for heading 1, we have also defined for heading 1. Therefore, this one will just be a paragraph. But what will be affected by CSS is Don is a computer teacher. Therefore, let's save that one. Then once I save, I go back to my browser and refresh. Now see what has happened. Don is a computer teacher has turned maroon, and then linen color has been applied in the background. Therefore, that is another way of inserting CSS. That is, we have inserted CSS inside, that is using the internal method. Then we can go and use the inline, that is meaning we can also insert CSS inside the line, but I would wish you actually understand this. This is, we have inserted it inside the head section so that we can apply for this page. But you can also insert it in a line. You can also insert it from an external source. The best method is using the external source because it will not actually increase the volume of your codes. Therefore, let's go ahead and delete all this. Then we can practice the last part, the last method of inserting CSS, that is called inline. That is inline method. Now the inline method, we can just go and look at the inline method. Now the inline method, this one, an inline style. An inline style may be used to apply a unique style for a single element. To use inline styles, add the style attribute to the relevant element. Therefore, we shall go and do that practically. Therefore, what you do, if I want to the CSS to only affect, we can now remove even this. If I want my CSS to only affect a single line, a single element, like heading 1, therefore I'll go ahead on here, then type heading 1, then style equals, I give my attributes that I want. Therefore my style equals color. I need my color to be blue. We put a full colon, that is to my margin left. My margin left to be 30 pixels. And then after doing that, I type what I want being affected, that Don is teaching CSS. Then I cross this heading 1. You see now this one I have used inline. I have only assigned one line or a single element, that is heading 1. I have assigned a single element heading 1, the CSS, and therefore you see what has happened. When I refresh, Don is teaching CSS. I have only affected the line, but the best method, I repeat, is the use of external. That is the use of external CSS. That is the best method that I would actually ask you to use. Therefore, we can go ahead to the next part of our lesson. After now looking at that one, we can look at CSS color. Therefore, let's look at the CSS color. Colors are specified using predefined color names or RGB or hexadecimal or the other methods varies there. For example, you can insert heading 1 style back color tomato. Then you write tomato and that. Therefore, if for example we do that, you can see how we insert color in CSS, just like I have done in this line here, this one. Therefore, for example, heading 1 style, we wanted this sentence. This is our element. We wanted our element Don is teaching CSS to have color blue, and therefore add margin this. Therefore, what I needed to do is just remove this one. I remove that part, then we shall be left with the color so that we can practice. For example, we can use the normal method of assigning color and write something like tomato, tomato that way. Let's see, and then I can now just save this, then go to the browser, then refresh. Therefore, you can see how tomato color looks like. Therefore, when you want to assign a color, you can use this method of writing. You can also write something like orange, red. Alternatively, the best method is to use we use the hexadecimal. Like now, I can use FFFF that way. Then I save. You can get the color codes in the this tutorial. You see now that is color black, FFF that way. For example, if I put 00 there, then we go and refresh. You see now that is color pink. Okay, you don't need to cram this. You just have to know the first colors, then you can put any other number there. Therefore, you can be in a position to actually put the color that is color for the text. On the other hand, you may also learn how to put the background color. Background color, like for example, we are talking of background color of this page using CSS. Therefore, if I want to do that, I only type now from this point here. I can just type style. I need this element of mine to have a background color, and therefore I can just go here and type background color. Then I give the background color. Like now, we can just come at this point and then write something like maroon. Then save this. Now this one will be assigning background color to this sentence. Therefore, I can just go to my browser and refresh. See what has happened. It has assigned maroon to that element only. Therefore, sometimes you need to do that. But if you need to have the font color, you just type color without any other property there. Therefore, on the other hand, you can also assign border color. Like now, I need this one to have a border color, and therefore, what I need to do is to go to my sentence, then write border. Like for example, we need to have a border here. Therefore, I can remove this. Then we go to our style border. Then I put the number of pixels, like I need it to be 4 pixels, that is thick. Then pixel, and then it should be solid. Then the color, like now I can say orange, that way. Then can save this. Then go to this one and refresh. You see now what has happened. It has assigned a border, that is a border on the, it has assigned border with the color I want, that is in that attribute, in that element that I actually needed. Then you can also go ahead and look, what if now I want to assign the background, that is the whole background of my whole page. For that case, you usually use the body attribute, and therefore I can just come to this point and write body. Then I open my curly brackets. You open curly bracket, then we can assign what we need here. Therefore, I can just go and type background color that way. Then you can give the color, like now you can just give light blue that way, then save. Therefore, after doing that, I can be in a position to go to my browser and refresh. Okay, there is something we haven't done. That is, we have written body background color is light blue. Okay, for this one we need to have saved this one as okay, haven't given it. Okay, that one may not work here since we have not assigned this one in to which we have not assigned this one the way we have agreed. Therefore, you can, to make it work, you can include the head. Then remember to add this head. Then also we have agreed that this one should be preceded by style, and whatever you do, you have to cross it. Then we have also to cross style that way. Then save it. Then go and refresh page. Yeah, you see, therefore you can see the color has come. That is the background color, that is light blue. Therefore, the method I have used here was the ones that we have actually run here. That is the internal style sheet. Remember, we have the inline, that is line by line. Then you have this one. I have used the internal style sheet, but the best method we have said is the external. Therefore, for this one, my point of emphasis was how to put background color. Therefore, you can put background color by use of body attribute. Then we still carry on. Then we can look at the background image. Now, how can you assign a background image in case I don't want to use color, but I want to use background image? Therefore, what you need to do is to put the background image attribute. That is, you go to background, then you see from this point here, we are actually being provided by the attributes that you can use. Like now, I want to have background image. Then you take the URL of it. Like now, URL. Then you go to the name of that is the name of the image. Like now, I need to have quotation marks. Then if I go to my file, my folder, I can check. I have gombe.jpg. This is the file that I want inserted in my CSS. Therefore, you can just type gombe.jpg. Therefore, that's what the image that we have. Therefore, then you can save. See how we have done that according to how CSS defines it. Image, this, then URL, then the name of the file. Then we actually want a background image. Therefore, we just come to this point and refresh, then you can see that our image gombe.png has been inserted. That is in our CSS file. Therefore, that's also how you can insert an image, that is a background image. Then we can proceed and look at the next point. We are done with the color, text color. We are done with the border color. We have looked at this. Therefore, we can just go ahead to slide number 19 and look at the CSS borders. Now, the CSS border properties allow you to specify the style, width, and color of elements border. Therefore, we shall be in a position to do something like this. You see what I have done here. There is the word CSS and there is a green border outside that way. Therefore, the border styles, you can have dotted, dash, this type of borders. And therefore, let's go and look at that one. We do it practically. Therefore, we want to do the border. That is the border example. Like for instance, we might have to write our style. We remove this code here, and that is the body code. Then we go and type 2 sentences there, 2 codes. Like for example, we can type that p.dotted. That means there will be a dotted line. Then we can have border style. Border style is dotted that way. Then you cross with the semicolon. Therefore, the p.dotted border style is dotted. Then you can have another one, p.dashed, then border style. This one is dashed style. Okay, we can use those two. Remember how I have taken you through the inline. Then from there we can now go to our body section to see whether that one will be applied. Therefore, we can just come to this point and then type that p. Okay, we usually call it using class. Therefore, you can just write that p class. Now, class now will refer to this p class. This is the class. Therefore, the word class here is just a keyword to call that one, and therefore this one is dotted. Then we shall go to this point and then write down which you see here. Then we cross our p. Therefore, what you expect is that this don which is here will take the first attribute dotted. Then the next one which is now p class equals to now dashed. Then you can have done is here teaching CSS. Then from there we can have /p. Therefore, if we try to see that one, let's see what we have. We go to our browser and refresh. Therefore, you can see the difference. Therefore, we have done is here. We have the dotted and the dashed applied. That is the border styles being applied in that manner. That is the border style of CSS. Then we can go to the next item. After that one, we can look at the CSS margins property. Therefore, when you talk about CSS margin property, you can have margin top, you can have margin right, you can have margin bottom or margin left. Therefore, these are the properties we are talking about. You have margin top, margin right, margin bottom, and then margin left. Therefore, you can apply those properties. Like for example, I want us to do one practical bit, and then you can be in a position to actually see how the element will actually look like. Therefore, you can go ahead and remove this. Also, remove this code here. Remember, we are typing our code inside the head section, inside styles. Therefore, we can have to declare a division part. We declare by using the word div. Then we put our attributes here. Like for example, I need to have border of 2 pixels and should be solid black, that way. Then we now go to margin top. Now margin from top should be 100 pixels. Then we shall have margin bottom will be also 100 pixels. Then we shall have margin left. Now margin left will be 150 pixels. Then we shall have the last one, margin right. Margin right will be 80 pixels. Then we shall have the background color of our page. Background color. Just choose background color of our page will be light blue. That way. Therefore, this is our CSS that will be applied on whatever we shall type in the body section. And therefore, in our body section, we can just type something like heading 2. That is just for making text big. Then we can just say that we are running CSS today. Then you can cross the heading 2. Then from there, whatever now that will be written inside the div will take all these attributes. This div, whatever you write inside between div and you cross the div, will be assigned all these attributes. For example, let's see that we can talk of CSS is one of the most enjoyable formatting styles that way. Then we can now save that one. Then go on to our browser and try to see what happens. Therefore, you can see what has happened. CSS is one of the most enjoyable formatting. You can see now the margins, how the margins all around has been applied. Therefore, you can see it has been pushed from this side, pushed from down, and then it is actually somehow surrounded by the attributes that you have given. That is, from top it is 100 pixels, from bottom 100, that way. That is how actually we expected it to be. And therefore you see how we are putting the CSS style inside the head section, and then we now call it, we call it inside the body, and then whatever we do is being actually effected. Therefore, on the other hand, there is shortcut of avoiding to do all this. For instance, instead of doing all this, you would have just written one sentence. Like for instance, to apply all this, I can delete this, then I can just write the term margin, only that. Then we have something like I would have written 25 pixels space 50 px space 75 px lastly 100 px px. Now what I'm actually doing, I'm just declaring top margin 25, right margin 50, bottom 75, and left 100, other than writing the way I had written in the other word. Therefore, you can still use that one is called shorthand property. You can use the shorthand property other than doing that. You can see still it's working, but this one I have reduced the number of pixels. Therefore, you can also use the shorthand, that is the shorthand property of doing that. Then on the other hand, we can go to the next part, that is on our slide. We can go to, after now looking the shorthand property, we can go to CSS padding. Now CSS padding, the CSS padding properties are used to generate space around an element content inside of any defined borders. With the CSS, you have full control over the padding. There are properties for setting the padding for each side of an element: top, right, bottom, and left. Therefore, padding is actually generating space around the element. Therefore, let's go and do a bit of some padding. We see how padding works. That is by use of padding left, padding bottom, right, top, that way. Therefore, this one is very close to whatever you had done. Therefore, you can just use the div again. Therefore, you can just come to this point and write div. Then that is a division. Then type your code inside the, just type your code here. Like for example, we can start by having a border. We need a file to have a border. So we can have a border of 2 pixels and a solid black. Then we go to background color of our page. We need our background color to be light blue. Then we can go to padding now. You see now there, here we have padding. We can start with padding top. Padding top, how many pixels? We need 50 pixels. Then we have padding bottom. Padding bottom should be something like 30 pixels. Then we have padding left. Padding left, you can give it 80 pixels. Then we have padding, that is padding right. Padding right, you can give it also 30 pixels. Remember to terminate with a semicolon. Then after doing that, we save our work. Then you can go and see what happens in our browser. Therefore, you can see now, this is whatever you're talking of padding, the space that has been actually been given. That is here. Look at the space between this point to this point, this point to this point, rather than the margin. The margins are outside, but the padding is inside now this object. Try to see this margin, these spaces, that is the padding we are talking about. Like for example, if we can assign all of them the same number, no, it should not actually be the same number since it should be total to 100. Therefore, we needed it to be 60. Now let's just change the figure and see what happens. We can give now this 80, this one 10, that way. Then we go to our file and refresh. Now try to see what has happened. You can see now this space has been increased. This one has this, we have given this 10, this one 80. Therefore you can see the difference of padding, what we are talking of, padding. On the other hand, it is also important to note that we can also have the shorthand of padding. Other than now writing all this, you can write padding in one statement. Just type the word padding, then put a full colon. Then you can write just like I have shown you shorthand for that is shorthand for margins. You can still write the same shorthand for this. Don't forget the order is top, right, bottom, left. Therefore this is top, this is right, the second one, the third one is bottom, and the last one is left. Therefore if I go back now to my browser and refresh, you can see now what is happening. It is actually affecting that one the way it should be. Therefore, after looking at that, we can go and see setting height and width. We can set height and width using CSS. The height and width properties are used to set the height and width of an element. The height and width can be set to auto. This is default, means that the browser calculates the height and width, or be specified in length values like px, centimeters, etc., or in percentage of the containing block. Therefore, we can go and practice that. We look at how we actually set the height and width. Therefore, we shall practice and see how we shall set our height using the percentage. Like for example, we can remove this part here. Remember, all our codes should be inside the style sheet. That is the style tag there. Therefore, we go write div, that is division. We want to see what happens. Therefore, just go to div, then type height 200 pixel, then width we can give, that is 50%. Then you terminate with a full colon, and then we can give our background color. Our background color is powder blue, that way. Then we go to what we want affected. Like now we remove this. We can remove this and then have our heading. Like now, our heading 1. We just say that we are at setting height and width in CSS. Then we close the heading 1. Now, once I cross the heading 1, I can now write whatever I need it to be in the div. Like even if we leave it that way, we still have the like now div. Can just leave it at that. First of all, let's see what we have. We have set the height, we have set the width and height. Therefore, we can just go back and refresh. Therefore, we are at setting this. Therefore, we go back to this point. Background color. assign our background color something different. Background color, something like maroon. Let's try to see whether this one will work. Inside the div here, you can just say hi CSS. Yeah, therefore you can see this one is actually 250%. Let's see if we increase this one, we avoid the mixing, then we use 100 pixels instead of that one. You see now that one is being affected. Therefore you can have 1000 with 1000 pixels. You see now that one is being affected. Then you can have this one as 90 pixels. That is our height and width property. Then from there, let's look at this was the code that I had written there, that we have to assign the width and the height. Then there is the maximum width. The maximum width property is used to set the maximum width of an element. The maximum width can be specified in length, that is in the length values. Therefore, you can look at the maximum height, how to set the maximum height. For example, let's go to practical bit. We remove this part here, then you can zoom in so that you can be in a position to see this one. Therefore, div, then you open that is we go back to our style sheet. Div, then we have maximum width, then we can give it to 500 pixels. Then height, you can give height to 100 pixels. Then you can give our background color for clarity, so that you can see how our page looks like, orange. Then remember, after now having this, the way I took you through how it is put inside the head style, and then you cross the style, you go now to the body. Now from the body, you may need to write something like now, for example, from this point, we can write, we have our heading 1 written that way. Then we have a div, we across our div. Then you can write a paragraph here, P, can write that besides the browser window to see the effect. That way. Then we save that, then go to our browser. Therefore, you see what we are doing. Therefore, you can see now we are setting, okay, this one has actually been set according to this one, that is the the maximum width is 500, and if, for example, you switch that one, you change that, see now it has actually been affected, but because I have increased that is the maximum width. Therefore, our point of interest here is the maximum width, and therefore you have seen how maximum width is actually set. Then after having known that, we can go to the next item, that is the CSS box model. The box model is something of the sort. We shall be doing something of the sort, that is the box model. And how do you do that? Using CSS. Therefore, to do that, you have the context. Now the content is where the text and images appear. Then padding clears an area around the content. The border, that is a border that goes around the padding and the content. The margin clears an area outside the border, that is the margin is transparent. Therefore, we shall go and do an exact practical on that. And therefore, let's do one. Remove all this. You also remove all this. Remember, I'm just deleting but leaving the part that is standard, that is where our code goes. And therefore, we shall just write our division, then we close our curly brackets. Now, after doing that, we go to our background color. We set our background color in our field. Like now, you can just call it light gray. Then we go to width. Our width should be 350 pixels. Then we shall have our border. Our border is 25 pixels and should be solid orange. Then we have our padding. Remember what is padding? I've looked at what is padding. Our padding should be 25 pixels. Then margin. Our margin should be 25 pixels. That way. Then now we usually go to the body part to see the effect. If we shall go to the body part, so I can have something like heading 2. Then you say that really demonstrating how to use box model. Then we can cross our heading 2. Then after crossing our heading 2, we can proceed and type a sentence, paragraph. Remember, whatever you do, you have to close. Paragraph, and therefore you can say that the CSS box model comes here below, that way. Then after doing so, you can now have your statement in the div, the ones that you want affected. Division. Then you can type our stuff here. Just say that I'm using Notepad++ to code websites because it helps me to clearly format my tags and make it easy for autoflow of tags and CSS attributes. That way, Then I can now save that, then zoom out. Then I can now go to my browser and refresh. Therefore, you can see what we are making. I'm using Notepad++. Therefore, this is the box model that I'm taking you through. And therefore, you can see now we have been in a position to actually create the box model using that point. Then you can also go to a very important point, that is float and clear. Float property in CSS, that is float. Sometimes you may need to see how text goes. Like now you want this one to go to the left, the other one to go to the right. Usually use the float property. Therefore, the float property is very important. The float property is used for positioning and formatting content. For example, let an image float left to the text in a container. Then the float property can have one of the following values: left, right, or none. Therefore, let's go and practice on how to use that is the float to the right or to the left property. Therefore, for example, we shall insert an image, then we want the image to go to the right or the image to go to the left. Therefore, what you do, you go to this point here, you remove this, then we write our code there to demonstrate the float, and therefore we can have our image. mg means image. Therefore, we need our image to float right. Float, then you put a semicolon, right. Therefore, it will float right hand side. Then remember, we have already typed this. Therefore, I will not delete this. Then we go to, that is, we remove this division. We are not quoting any division anywhere. Therefore, from that point, we shall insert our image here. Remember, I have made, or I did a video in HTML. Therefore, in case you get some of the things I'm doing are not clear, just go and watch HTML full tutorial that I have done. It is in the playlist, and also I have put the link below this video. You can run HTML. Remember, for you to run CSS, you opt to have started by HTML so that you cannot get confused. And therefore, I want to insert an image. I had taken you through how to insert an image. Therefore, you go to, you write img source, then you give the source, the URL of our image. Our image is gombe.jpg, and we give the attributes of it. We want it to be a small one, and therefore you can just say art. That is the tooltip is a cattle. Ours will be cattle. That is the tooltip. Then we shall have style. Style equals to width. Our width is 170 pixels. Then our height is 170 pixels. Then margin. Then our margin left. Our margin left is 15 pixels. 15 pixels. Then you terminate with a semicolon. Therefore, from there you can save this. Then we go to our image here and see what happens. Therefore, you can see that we have inserted our image ng'ombe, that is the cattle, and our image is actually taken to the left, to the right, sorry. It has float, it is float. You can see now this is the float property. It has taken our image to the left. Now, in case I had written float to the left that way, then that mean that I have to change the margin left to right. That way, let's see what happens. Then I can go back and refresh. Therefore, you can see my cows or my cattle have been brought to the right. Therefore, this is how the float property works. It is a very powerful. It is a very powerful. That is a very powerful tag and property that helps you to make sure that CSS is actually behaving the way you want it. Then we can also look at the CSS font. The CSS font, that is text, how to we work on text. And therefore you can first of all start with the text color. If you need to put some text color like this one, you just you just give the text color property. For instance, on this point here, from P to where P ends, the CSS, that is the CSS box, this one here. If, for example, we want to give a color for this point, like here, I would have written P, that is P, then we write whatever you want, the P, that is the paragraph, whatever is inside the paragraph. Like now I want color to be red. Then on the other hand, I want to have something called the font family. Font family to be Times New Roman. I want it to be like that, Times New Roman. Alternatively, it should be times. Alternatively, should be serif. That is serif. Then we can also go to font size. I want to have font size. My font size, on the other hand, my font size, you can use EM. Like now I need it to be 10 EM. You can use that, or PX or RK, but many people use EM. Therefore, you can have font size of that. Like now, you can have font size of PX or EM. Then can also have something like font style. Font style. My font style should be, you can say, bold, italics, brick, that way. Now you see this property P, whatever P is, this one will be affected. Therefore my P all the way to where the P is, this is P, up to the other point up there, this one. This is the only one that will be affected by P, because I have crossed P here. Remember to refer to my HTML tutorial. Therefore, from that point, you can just go to my browser and refresh. Therefore, you have seen what I have told you. The CSS box model comes below here. Therefore, it has only affected the that part. Therefore, you can reduce the font, this EM, to something like 3. Yeah. Then go to our browser and refresh. Okay, they are good. Therefore, you can see now what has happened. The CSS box, the way CSS actually affects the whatever has been instructed. Therefore, this is how now we use, that is the CSS, that is fonts. that is font size. I have also taken you through font style, how you can apply font style, and also how you can actually put that is the font family. Therefore, you can still do that using using the internal CSS that we are actually using for now. Therefore, let's try to look a bit of how we can use the external CSS and affect attributes inside the HTML page. Now, to use external CSS, which is the professional method of doing it, we type the that is the link rel, the link rel attribute inside the head section, and therefore let's do it. We first of all go back to our folder and look at, we had created don.css, a folder called don. Therefore, you just right click and edit that one and then remove everything. We want to use it. Therefore, I just come to this point. I want to show you how to attach the external CSS and how it works. It is very interesting. And therefore, for example, we can just go and type the code here. That is a link relationship. What are we linking? We are linking style sheet. Type equals to text /css. Then the reference, where are we getting our stuff? We are getting our stuff from don.css. Remember, all CSS files must have .css. Therefore, we are trying to say that whatever is written inside the don.css will affect everything that will be written here. Then from there, we go to body. We write our HTML style. We have body, then we cross body. Then we go to /HTML. Therefore, our stuff, on the other hand, our HTML stuff will go to this point, and then it will be affected by whatever you do here. Therefore, you can start by the body. You can type body. Then, once you type our body, here, we just go and type that body. That is our background color equals to light blue. Therefore, that one will now affect whatever you are doing here. Therefore, when I save, and then I go now to my browser, which is actually reading from our folder. Just a moment. First of all, I go to link rel style. Style sheet. Type is text CSS. Then href don.this. Therefore, we go to this point. We look at what might be the problem. Therefore, we need to write something here, that our background color should be light blue. Then we save, we go to browser and refresh. Yeah, that one has happened. Therefore, you can see CSS, that is, this page is getting attributes from here. Therefore, you can still proceed and then have something here. Like now, we can go and have our paragraph. That is our paragraph. We'll have the following properties. Therefore, whatever you write here will actually go to our paragraph. First of all, we shall have our font family. Our font family, a font family is Times New Roman, then you have comma, you have times, comma, serif. Then we shall have our font style. Our font style will be brick. Then our font size will be 3M. That way. Therefore, so far the way we have gone together, we have practiced. You can now see that the font that will be enclosed in P will have that affected that way. Therefore, if I come to my body, then I assign P. /P that way. Then you can write that we are now doing external professional links with CSS that way. Therefore, you expect whatever I have done to affect P, since it's getting our sentence from there. Therefore, you can see we are now doing external professional links with CSS. It is actually getting whatever you are doing here at the other point. Then from there, we can also do a bit of good stuff here. Like now, we can have to use some, that is the div. We just take you a bit of, we can type of div class. Div class, that is for the first one here, is dad. We just call one dad, or we can just call it my family. Then we close this. Everything must be closed. Div. Therefore, that one has shown you that we have closed that one. Then inside here, we have another division called firstborn. Division class equals to just call it sun. Then we close sun /div. Therefore, it is showing you that you have closed the sun. Then you can start daughter. Then you can have div class equals to daughter. Then we close that div, call it /div. Now this is the father, this is the family. You can see it is crossing here. Then you have the son crossed here, then the daughter here. Then now inside the son, you can say that the son to this guy here is called Don. Then you go to the daughter and say that the daughter to this gentleman here is called Belinda Wanja. Now, after doing that, we can now go to our CSS and then put .sun. Now .sun, we give the attributes of the sun. How do we want the sun to be written? Then we can also have daughter. Then this is now another division. I want to show you now something unique. Therefore, I can now give the attributes of, like now I can copy this, then paste it here, then change. Like for example, I need this one to be, okay, let that one remain, but this one be bigger. Like now this one should be 5M. Then we can give font color. Font, just type color is red. That is for the sun. But for the daughter, color is green. That is for the font. Then you can copy this for the daughter to have the same attributes for the daughter. But this one for the daughter should be 4M green. This one can change this one to be Algerian. Then now I can go and refresh my browser. Now see what has happened. We are now okay. The sun to this guy is Don Gichai. You can see it's different from the daughter. The daughter is Algerian. The other one is Sheriff. And CSS is actually understanding what I'm doing. Therefore, you can go ahead and put this one to 2M and this one to be 1 for the daughter. Then we had the family. Therefore, dot my family also need to be formatted. Dot my family. Then go to my code, my HTML code. Now my family here, we would have written that this is done Gichai senior family members outright. Then you can go to a browser and see whether you shall have that heading. Therefore, you can see you have the heading. This is done Gichai. Now this is the formatted under our family class. Then the son is under son class. Daughter is under daughter class. That's why you have put them in different divs. Therefore, you can even now separate this to make sure that you understand it even better. That way, therefore, they are in different classes. Only that this is the wrapper. Family is for everybody. Therefore, you can again go back to this and put this one to 2M. This one should be 3, color green. Then for the family again, we can still copy this because we still need the family to have the same. But for the family, this can be 5M. And for the family, color should be maroon. Then you can go to the browser and refresh. Oh, this is too big. You can have 3. The others can have 1. 1 em. Yeah, good. Now this is wonderful. You see now what CSS is doing. The point here is I am using an external CSS. I am doing my stuff on Don, that is on don.css, but it is actually affecting what I'm doing in my HTML. That's the professional way of doing it. You might have several CSS and link them. Like now I can have another one called James.css. I still keep them. You can have several. Doesn't mean that you have to write everything in one CSS. No, you can write in various CSS. Then, if for example I want to separate this one into several paragraphs, I can just introduce something called display flex. Display flex. That is a display flex. Then for this one, just come and write flex 1. Also the data flex 1. So it should be full colon display flex Then you see what has happened. It has created 2 columns. That is, I wanted them to actually go to 2 columns. But for example, if I need this one to be bigger, can put another figure there like 3. Then for example, you can see okay, display flex 3. This one should be 2. Let's try 2 and 1 since they are only 2. Therefore, what display flex does, it separates the those two into few columns. But for now, let's just remove this one. It's not helping us so much to run on our objective. We want to cover on what we want to cover. And therefore, if I now remove that one, you see now what we are actually doing using the external CSS. Therefore, instead of the internal, that is the internal method that you are using, you can opt to use the external CSS. Do all you are working on an external CSS, then connect the external CSS using the link relationship, that is the link rel, and then whatever you do, whatever you apply in that is in that those classes,